Okay, we're recording. Erev Tov, Michael. I understand that you're on shlichut in Fort Worth.
Allegedly.
I ask because this shiur today is in response to your question 2 weeks ago. Okay, remember your question?
Vaguely.
Life has happened.
I wrote it down. Your question was that all the sources we studied about diversity, Mark, all the stories, all the sources, that we studied about diversity in the previous sessions were about rabbis, about the agreements and disagreements about deciding halakha and the authority for deciding halakha and the necessity to have a framework, a joint framework for the people, which is by the deciders of the law of the halakha. What about just in general, if people should have diversity or not? So I went to look for some, I also searched through my head, maybe my heart, and I also went to look for some sources about some thoughts that I had. And I'm going to share with you some of these things that I came up with. So it goes like this. First thing I'm going to say today is I'm going to start with politics and then move into Torah and rabbinics, okay? Just like we talk about, because there's a lot of comparison in the sense of leadership, that there are lawmakers, there's a parliament, there's a certain body that decides about the law. This is true in the state, in the law of the state, and it's true about the Torah with the Sanhedrin. But then there are also the people. So if we go to a democracy, and if we have leaders who don't give good messages and good energy to diversity and treat people who disagree with them in a very violent, certainly disrespectful, but disrespectful is mild, disrespectful and violent and vicious, and not only disrespectful, it's degrading, I would say. They treat people who disagree with them in a degrading way, or if anybody wants to suggest another kind of powerful negative term, then we can say, oh, it's them, it's the leaders, it's not us, we don't want that. But to a very large extent, I think that's a very much a cop-out, because we decide, because in a democracy, we vote for these leaders. And if it was important enough for the majority of us, then they wouldn't be the leaders. Or if we would demand from our leaders that they don't behave in this way, then we would have leaders that would treat each other with more of a diversity and respect, mutual respect, and so on. Ofer, Baruch haba. It's fine. Come join us. So I think we're talking about something which is very, very practical, relevant, a little bit more. So everybody can see that you're here. Oh, there he is. It's very much the reality of where we're at, because what happened in the previous year, or in the previous years, is that political leadership, I don't want to say on one side, I do want to say on all sides, is not all sides, but on many, many sides, has been leading in a way that is causing the disagreements and the diversity in society to be a very negative, disrespectful discourse, the way people treat one another, and so on. And a lot of people spoke out against it, but didn't act on what they said, meaning if they were very strong right wing or very strong left wing, they chose to prefer voting for someone who is powerfully right wing and speaks disrespectfully of people who disagree with him, or powerfully left wing and speaks disrespectfully towards people who disagree with him. So the voters chose that people who express powerful views and disrespect other people, that's who we're going to vote to be our political leaders. So the people voted that. And if the people would have said 5-10 years ago, we want your opinions, we don't want that behavior, and we would have found other right-wing and left-wing leaders who know how to treat one another properly. So I don't think it's about the leaders. I think it's about the people. So I think when we talk about leaders, we can't really disconnect it from the people. Of course, it's not exactly, there isn't the exact, how would you say in Hebrew, hat'amah, there isn't correlation.
Correlation, yeah.
It's not a
correlation.
perfect, not an
A
exact,
match,
accurate
it's like a
correlation.
match.
Match.
Like a
Right.
match between the people and those political leaders, because you can't mold the exact political leader that you want, and you have to choose one of those who is an option. But still, there is a lot of connection, a lot of correlation. There is a lot of correlation, if not 100%, between how these so-called leaders behave and how the people who vote for them, what their preferences are. And so I want to take this into rabbinics as well, because what the sources we're talking about rabbis with different opinions, with disagreements, the rabbinic leaders of the Torah parliament called the Sanhedrin and so on, because the Mishnah in Masechet Avot says, "Aseh lecha rav." You decide who your rabbi is. And one thing I always say to people is, ain't nobody going to choose your rabbi for you. Nobody can tell you, this is the rabbi. I'm telling you, this is the rabbi. I had that argument with someone once because they quoted a rabbi that I did not choose to be my rabbi. And I said, okay, so very nice, but there are other rabbis. And they said, no, this is the big rabbi. He's the great rabbi. He's the one that we should all follow. And I said, I looked it up in the Mishnah and it says, choose your rabbi, not choose your friend's rabbi. It's the same Mishnah. It says, Aseh lecha rav, pnei lecha chaver. Choose your rabbi, take upon yourself the authority of a rabbi, and make yourself acquire a real friend. It doesn't say acquire a rabbi for your friend, So nobody can choose your rabbi for you. So if there's a rabbi that you see and you like the way he teaches and you like all kinds of things about the Torah he's teaching and about the way that he's leading, but he's disrespectful of others, and you choose him as your rabbi, so it's the same thing. It's up to the people. It's about it's not only about the rabbis, it's also about the people. So if Shammai and Hillel, if we learned about Shammai not accepting the decisions when Hillel were the Beit Shammai not accepting the decisions when Beit Hillel were the majority and things like that, if they had followers, so it's not only the rabbi's fault, it's the fault of the followers as well. If they wouldn't have a following, they wouldn't have any power. It's the people who give the leadership, whether it's political or rabbinic, it's the people who give the leadership the power. And if the people don't follow leaders who are not accepting the basic understanding of the positive aspects of diversity, then you can't only blame the leaders. So there's a lot of correlation between the leaders and the people. That's point number one. Anybody want to comment on point number one out of four?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
First of all, there's a name for this. It's called posturing.
What's the word?
Posturing, where you take a posture, you show a certain face to the people that you can't, that's not a deep face. It's just the surface that you say, I'm for, I don't know, I'm for democracy, or I'm for security, and you just say that, and you don't do anything to explain what you're doing, but you just so that's called posturing,
Okay.
but which we have to try to eliminate. But there's also a problem with the political system, like in Israel at least, you don't elect your leaders. You vote for the party, and the party picks the leaders for you. And we had about 25 years ago the ability to vote directly for the prime minister, but that got abandoned for some reason. And we can't vote for our Knesset members. We don't have Knesset members. The Labour Party or the Likud Party chooses the Knesset members that will be for us. And so you can have a real jerk at the party. And if the party puts them in a high enough position, there's nothing that the people can do about it if they want.
Eliezer, I'm going to ask you just to keep it short, okay?
That's it.
Okay. So I just want to say, first of all, I partially agree with you, but partially don't, because, and I don't want the major discussion to be about Israel's political system, but still, if you see the list of the party and you choose to vote for that party because there are 23 out of the first 25 seats that are okay, and 2 are crazy, really ridiculous people who got in there. So I don't want to vote for the party, and it's up to me again. But mostly because I don't want to discuss the details of the political system. Try to take it back to the rabbinic, rabbinic leadership. It's up to a rabbi who doesn't. If you don't follow the rabbi doesn't have any power.
Well, I want to say something about that too, which is that what about the chief rabbi of Ranana?
Okay, but it's a political position.
Yeah.
But that's not power. That's external power. It's not the real power. You're right. There's political power to rabbis also. As Rabbi Sachs says, it's the power of the idea, not the idea of power. When Judaism is about the idea of power, it gets corrupted. When it's about the power of the ideas, that's when it has positive influence. But you're right in the political aspect of rabbinics, but in the spiritual aspect of rabbinics, that's not the real leadership.
But you have the same problem with the Rav of the Kotel.
I agree.
I was thinking on the way here, I was thinking that it just occurred to me, we have these municipal elections coming up, and it's held that, elections are divisive, and we can't have an election now because, that's just going to divide, but this is nonsense. I mean, an election is an opportunity for people or leaders, whatever you like, to express ideas and have a contest of ideas. And that's not what's happening in elections for the last long time. As Eliezer said, it's all about posturing, not about ideas. And this is a disaster, because if we were using the opportunity of elections to have a real discussion of ideas, of what we want our policies to be, then we would, we'd have a proper discussion and we'd make an evaluation. But we don't do that.
Well, first of all, I hope that because of the war, something has changed, and we're all hoping and wary that it might go back to what it was and so on. But I also have to say again, so don't vote for a person that all he's doing is posturing. Look for the person who's speaking about ideas. And if you don't find one, that's a problem. If they're all just posturing, okay, let's try to create new leadership. But basically what I'm saying is the idea of the religious leaders, when we're discussing the religious leaders, it's not only about the leadership, it's also about how, who the people, every one of us chooses to give strength to. Okay. With your permission, I'd like to move on to point number 2, which is a source in Hebrew that I don't believe exists in English. Had I thought of it early enough, maybe I could have translated it into English, but I'll do that now. How do you say?
On the fly.
On the
fly.
On the fly. I'll do that. How do you say Baal Peh?
Orally.
Orally. So here's the source. Let's see, where am I? Here we are. No, that's not it. Is it? It isn't it. There we are. Here we are. Here you have it here. See where it says Chofesh? And that's what we're looking at over here. The source is from Rav Kook, a compilation called Midot HaReaya. Midot is, I would say, certain traits or topics to discuss, because they're not only personality traits. And the headline is Chofesh, freedom. And the compilation was put together, I believe, by his son, Rav Tzvi Yehuda, but these are all kinds of short paragraphs that Rav Kook wrote about different topics. And he says about freedom, and if you look at the first words, they are Hashifa lechofesh hadeot, the aspiration that we should have freedom of opinion, not even before we express our opinion, before freedom of speech, that we have freedom of thought. We're free to think and form our own opinions, right? In certain societies, you're not allowed to think freely. You're not allowed to form your own opinions. You have to accept the opinion of the framework in which you're born or being raised and so on. So says Rav Kook, the aspiration to have freedom of opinion, השאיפה לחופש הדעות, יש בה צד טוב וצד רע. It has a good side and a bad side, a holy side and an impure side, צד קדוש וצד טמא. Now he's going to explain what the good side is, and then he's going to say what the bad side is. So he says the good side is, הצד הטוב הוא, says in a person, there are a human being has different aspects to him. There is the imagination, dimyon, and ta'avot chomriyot. A person has all kinds of physical, material desires. And if that's what's guiding him, things that he's imagining, he's thinking of all kinds of physical desires, and that's what guides him, and that's what drives him. And then he wants to have freedom to let out or to allow himself to what's the word? To soak himself. There's a different word for it. To kind of indulge. That's the word I was looking for. To indulge into all these, physical desires that he has. Then, and this is what guides his thinking, his opinions, his freedom. And it's that's the negative. What he's saying here is when we rise above, mitromemet, when we litromem, to go above, ram is high up. When a person rises above this burden of this imagination, this desire, physical desires, then a person's opinions, his de'ah, is walking freely, is acting with freedom, and me'asheret et ha'adam ve'et ha'chevra, me'asheret from the word osher. It brings happiness. It brings blessing to every individual and to the society. That's the positive side of freedom of opinions. In other words, Rav Kook is not saying, I didn't say which opinion. I didn't say if it should be right wing or left wing. If it should be nationality or it should be individualism. If it should be liberal or it should be about accepting the yoke of God. It's about being above these very physical desires that sometimes push people and guide people in their lives. If we rise above that to higher aspects of being human beings, then our opinions are truly free and they bring happiness to the individuals and to the society. That's the positive side, freedom of opinions. The negative side of it is when the picture, the vision of freedom of opinions guides itself according to the natural human inclinations, meaning physical inclinations, that have to do with dimyon, once again, with imagination, with netiyat ha'avanit, with the inclinations that have to do with desires, and everything that is low, kol ma sheshafel, everything that is low, mitzad behemiyut shel adam, all the things in which human beings are like animals. It's okay that human beings have similar aspects that are similar to human beings, but human beings also have a mind to direct themselves. How do we enable ourselves to reach or to carry out these needs or these aspects of our beings, but not by shutting off the mind and just acting according to these physical, animal-like inclinations? And what that is guiding us, and that's what's putting its impression on us, when that's what puts its impression on us, then the freedom of opinions, it brings humanity to something which is very ugly, that causes us to lose the riches of life. In other words, the real valuable riches of life, and uproots those things that are noble about the human soul, about human beings, and that's just negative. I would give it an example, more of a parable than an example, and I would say when a child is young, you can't give the child freedom of action, freedom of opinion, because the child doesn't know. The child will choose based on immediate needs, very low level needs, without being able to exercise his own judgment and think about things and have awareness of higher aspects of being a human being. And so in the same way, when a whole society is on a very low childlike level, freedom of opinion is going to be very detrimental. They're just going to go wild. When a society has formed itself, has elevated itself, has other aspects, we never disconnect from all our physical and even those things that are animal-like about us. We don't disconnect from them. But if we have wisdom and if we are aware of higher aspects of human life, and we have a certain level of exercising judgment, using judgment, then freedom, the more we have that, then freedom of opinion is positive. And so this is a very difficult thing to say, because you're not going to choose, only who's going to be the judge who's going to say which societies are worthy of freedom of opinion and which are not. There's no way of doing that. But maybe in some way in the past, humanity wasn't ready for it yet. But even today, the problem today is that some aspects of modern societies, are ready for freedom of opinion. And some of them, if I'll be honest, not really. So, but you can't have freedom. Have freedom. It's either or. But we have to at least try to guide ourselves that our freedoms should be used for the higher and more noble aspects of what it means to be a human being, rather than for those lower and more natural, animal-like desires, inclinations, and so on. So this is what Rav Kook is saying. Other people who can understand the Hebrew and the English, if you have anything to add, or if you think I didn't describe it accurately, please say so. And here, Bevakasha, does anyone want to express something about this?
Your aspect of, I can't comment on the translation, but your example of the child. Children are known for wanting instant gratification. So it's coming now. And in our society, that's exactly what's happening in our society, because you've got this phone in front of you, you can clue into information immediately. You can write a response to what somebody says immediately without even thinking. And everything's got to be instant. The phone rings, you got to answer right away. And everything's got to be instant. You don't have a chance to think about things properly.
So you're connecting to it in the sense that even that we have to be aware, not to be childlike.
Yeah.
I'll take it a step farther than that. I think you have to basically develop those thinking muscles if you expect to make good choices about things. And you can't expect people that have been cared for in a childlike way their whole lives to suddenly be adult and take their place in society and make good decisions when they've always kind of given that up to somebody else. I think we saw that when America went into Iraq and Afghanistan, and they created elections that had never happened before. And we remember all those scenes of people coming out with their purple thumb because they voted and they were so proud. Well, they voted the way their tribal leader told them to vote. They had no clue. And that just wasn't part of their culture, and almost certainly is still not part of their culture. And thinking in our culture seems to be so yesterday. So
Well, what's tomorrow?
We'll wait and see, but it may not be so good if there's no thinking.
What can we do to I understand what you're saying, and I don't have a real good solution right now for those societies that have not even been given any process of preparation and training and being taught tools in order to make wise decisions, independent decisions. But before I go there, what can we do for our own society so that we will enable people to make decisions, more long-term, thought-out decisions than short-term. It's also, if you want to have I once read something that before the Civil War in the United States in the 19th century, there were panels. You'd have a panel on slavery, if it's positive, if it's negative. What I learned was that Tanakh was used on both sides, because in the Torah there are rules about Hilchot Avadim, rules about slaves. So there were those who claimed that the Bible was in favor of slavery, and the Cham, the son of Noach, was chosen to be a slave, and the blacks were chosen to be slaves. That's where they're destined to be slaves and things like that. So the Tanakh was used on both sides of the panel. But the interesting thing was that the panel, how did the panel work? Sunday was for opinion A to describe their opinion, and then Monday was for opinion B to describe their opinion. Each one got a day. Okay. Now, if they give you 2 minutes, that's a lot. And people don't, they say that if you make a video, I know my videos are too long. They're more than a minute long. I'm sorry, I can't put anything with 2 sides into it into 1 minute videos. I guess I was born to, before that was the going thing. So, so how do we
Don't feel bad. You simply can't do it.
okay. So we have to enable ourselves to exercise a little bit more patience, endurance, to be able to discuss things for more than a few short seconds so that we can actually go through some kind of thinking process. These are all part of our difficulties today. And what this is saying, that therefore freedom, I'm not saying the solution is, let's have one powerful leader. God forbid, that always brings us to even worse places. But we certainly are in not a little, but a lot of trouble if we can't go through long thinking processes, looking forward to things, and having patience to go through these processes rather than making quick decisions, because that's exactly what's wrong about those quick decisions. So our freedom, we have to be wary of we have to be wary and to be wise and try to take out of our freedom, to extract from it, to use it in a positive way, and not to let it control us in a negative way. But the reason I came to this source was because this is discussing freedom of opinion, where people can form their own independent, different opinions, and it's positive, but it has a positive aspect. It also has a negative aspect, and it's not about leaders. It's not about rabbis. It's just about anything, about anyone. So that's why when I was thinking of sources to answer or to address the issue that you raised, Michael, this is one of the sources that came.
Well, I think what I'm wrapping my head around here is that Judaism certainly has many, many sources discussing the value of bringing diversity to the arena, but that diversity has to do with thinking and knowledge and having a good grasp of, what's the basis of your opinion, going back to people that knew more than you do, just, the standard educational role of Jewish thought, and how different that is to what the rest of the world talks about when they say, oh, diversity is our strength. They're talking about a color photograph with different color people that has nothing to do with how they think or what they know. And it's literally a different cultural way of looking at the world. And I think we've got it right, but I don't know how you convince them.
I would take from what you said about Judaism, you made me think of the bracha that we say at a chuppah. We say, Mekadesh Amo Yisrael, the bracha that we say at the beginning of the chuppah, it speaks about the permissible relations between, a man and a woman, and the forbidden relations between a man and a woman. And then it ends with, Baruch Ata Hashem Mekadesh Amo Yisrael, Hashem brings holiness into Am Yisrael, al yedei chuppah v'kiddushin, because we don't just act on our immediate desires or inclinations or even love. Okay, I'm not only talking about physical. Even when there is a personal and interpersonal deep relationship, we put it within a certain framework before we act on it. And the idea of holiness is being able to have restraint. In the same way, restraints about food that's not kosher, and things like that. Or even saying a bracha before we eat food is a form of, amongst other things, a form of restraint, which makes it holy, which gives a certain aspect of holiness, because it means we don't disconnect from our more physical aspects, more animal-like aspects, but we do by having restraint, we express something about the higher sides of being human beings that connect to it. And in that way, Judaism is trying to guide us in a direction where we hold back, we think about what we're doing, and then we do them in a higher way. In that sense, I connect to what you were saying. I do think, though, that in the world around us, there are also some positive aspects of diversity. For instance, they say that I can't say that I've read this research, but research has been quoted to be saying that a workplace in which the people are diverse in the sense of the societies that they come from, it doesn't inevitably have to do with the color of skin. People come from diverse backgrounds. That gives an advantage to the workplace. That gives the firm a certain, it pushes the firm forward because there are different perspectives brought into the workplace, and that enriches and doesn't keep people stuck in a certain way, and enables the firm to move forward. So that's an interesting aspect of diversity that the general world has apparently experienced and discovered. I don't know how well it's being carried out in the world, but it's something that I learned not from Judaism.
When Rav Kook, there's a subtle issue here about freedom to just do what you feel like doing, and freedom to evaluate, freedom of thought, to evaluate what's the best thing. Because one, which can also go wrong, but
but at least there, I think what Rav Kook is saying is at least there's a chance that this freedom is bringing us to some higher planes, and they can be with different opinions, but also someone who cares about one set of values and someone who cares about another set of values. At least they're striving for something which is of values and not only for immediate lower needs. So in that sense, it's already pushing us in some direction that has potential. Whereas if it's just freedom to act on our desires, it doesn't have any potential to help us reach anything that's unusually positive.
An aspect of freedom that maybe is independent from what we're discussing, or maybe not, is we're talking about freedom of thought. We're not talking about, okay, you're free, but what do you use that freedom for?
Mm-hmm.
Do you use it, as you say, for instant gratification, or do you use it for something a little bit deeper?
In that sense, I've been saying about, Sefer Shmot never says let my people go. What I mean that it never says in Sefer Shmot, let my people go. It never says just let my people go. It says let my people go, and they will
Worship me.
they will worship me. Meaning freedom, and Yetziat Mitzrayim, the whole is a very powerful source in the world about acting to achieve freedom, and but you're right, in the Torah it's never just freedom from, it's freedom to, freedom for. What are we trying to achieve with our freedom? So yes, that's a very interesting point. Okay.
The point that you raised about the different cultures getting together and maybe having a better work product, or even a different culture that arises from that has a lot of merit to it. But it also made me think that some of the difficulties that we see in just the world is when one society decides that what they think is best for them is going to be best for everybody, and they try to impose that, and it may not be the best for a different culture that has a different value in various things.
Okay, that's something important to be aware of. Okay, let's try for point number 3. And that is, I will start with describing the content, and then I'll try to show that that I'm not making it up. My idea is the thought of the tribes in Am Yisrael, because when you read Sefer Bereshit and you see the tribes beginning to fight, the sons of Yaakov, the different tribes of Am Yisrael, fighting between themselves already in Sefer Bereshit, and then you follow and they're fighting over leadership, and then you move on to later on in the history of Am Yisrael, and you have the first kings, you have Shaul, and then you have David and Shlomo, and then you have the split between the two kingdoms, the main kingdom in Judah and the northern kingdom of the 10 tribes, and the whole struggle between these two kingdoms for hundreds of years, and everything that happened in the time of King David about the struggle between the different tribes. So I think at my ripe old age, I can say at a very young age, I asked myself, so what for? Why do we need these tribes? It's better just to have Am Yisrael. Why do we have to have tribes? But I think you realize pretty quickly that there are 2 aspects about having tribes. One of them is that there are going to be tribes in any case. We better learn how to handle it before it just pounces on us, because whether the tribes are set in advance, you're born to tribe A and someone else is born to tribe B. There's Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and so on. Whether that's pre-assigned or whatever, we're going to group into different tribes. Look at the reality of the Israeli society today. We group into different tribes by different aspects, even though they're not pre-assigned. You're not born, or if you want to, you can move between the different tribes, but still we work in groups. And so very similar to what I quoted actually in the last time we met, one of the Mishnayot we quoted said, since the halacha was decided according to Beit Hillel, why do we quote Beit Shammai? We're wasting ink and time. We're wasting ink by including in the Mishnah the opinion of Beit Shammai. The halacha was decided by Beit Hillel. Why do we even have to mention that Beit Shammai disagreed? And the answer of the Mishnah was because it was teaching us that the fathers of the world, that's what they're called, Beit Shammai or Shammai and Hillel, were not stubborn, that they could disagree with one another and move on and make decisions and so on. In other words, there's a point in the world of teaching diversity, not of practicing diversity. Not only let's try to be in unison. What can you? Sometimes we fall into a place of differences and differences of opinions. No, we have to kind of take the opportunity, because there is going to be diversity, whether we like it or not. We have to practice diversity. We have to take those opportunities to teach how to live in a diverse society, how to disagree, how to discuss, how to talk and listen to one another, and so on. That's about the Mishnah. So I would say the same about Am Yisrael. First of all, why are there tribes? Because there are going to be tribes inevitably. So let's make the tribes and try and handle them rather than just let it happen in a way that doesn't have any guidance. And the other aspect of it is that the tribes are going to express different powers within a nation, different aspects, different talents, different, how would you say, different, just like in individuals, different people stress or have a certain more powerful trait in their personality. Different people, different such aspects that are stronger in their personal, individual personality. In the same way, different tribes are going to have different strengths, also different weaknesses, different talents that can benefit the nation, and so on. And so the tribes express this, and you see that in the blessings of Yaakov towards the end of Sefer Bereshit, giving each child something that is something good that they can do for the nation. And you see that in the history of Am Yisrael, that this is a positive aspect of having tribes. So I was thinking all this, but then I said to myself, I have to find a source for this. It's a nice commentary on the Torah, but does somebody say it? Or is it just my own thought? And then at 8 o'clock, about an hour ago, I found such a source, and that's what I was working on when you came in, Mark. And I found it in an article. I found it in two places. One in an article by Rav Yoshua Weitzman, and I have it here on the sheet and in this on the screen. Where are we? There you are. And he brings Rav Yoshua Weitzman. Actually, he's retired, but he started the Hesder Yeshiva in Ma'alot, and that yeshiva has been very successful and has actually created several other yeshivas that came out of their yeshiva. And he quotes a Yerushalmi in the Talmud, in the Jerusalem Talmud, that says the following: Amar Rabbi Yanai, over here, Amar Rabbi Yanai, ilu nitna Torah chatucha, if the Torah was given with all the halachot decided, all cut up into little particles, and there was no place for discussion, lo hayta la regel amida, no one could stand on their feet. Why? Ma ta'am, what's the reason for this? Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe, Hashem spoke to Moshe, and Moshe said to him, Ribono shel olam, hodi'eni he'achli ha'alacha. Hashem said, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, tell me what the halacha is. I'll have all the halachic decisions for all generations. They won't have to discuss it. They won't have to argue about it. And Hashem said to him, Acharei rabim lehatot. We follow the majority. That's the halacha. Hashem says to Moshe, the halacha is you take a vote and you go by the majority. Why? So that kadei sheteheh Torah nidreshet memtet panim tameh umemtet panim tahor, so that the Torah will have 49 aspects of pure and 49 aspects of impure, so that different people can find themselves in the different aspects of the Torah. Those who have an understanding of this aspect will connect to that part of the Torah. Those who have an inclination towards the other aspect will find themselves, will connect to a different aspect of the Torah. And he says it's the gematria of the word vediglo. Vediglo, the word vediglo means his flag. I'll get back to that in a moment. And lamed is 30. Vav and vav is 12. That's 42. Daled is 4. Gimel is 3. That's 7. That's 49. The word vediglo is the numerical value of 49. And he quotes another pasuk that says that the words of Hashem are mizukak, are, how would you say mizukak?
Refined.
Refined. Thank you, Shivatayim. Shivatayim is like 7 times 7. Again, that's 49. Why is this important, the vediglo aspect? And he brings a pasuk in Bemidbar, in Numbers, where the Torah describes the camp of Am Yisrael in the desert, and it's the different tribes surrounding the Mishkan, and the pasuk says that each tribe has its flag. Ish al diglo beotot leveit avotam yachalu bnei Yisrael. The children of Israel shall encamp, each man by his division with the flag staffs of their father's house. The tribes, each tribe has a different flag. And the Midrashim describe the different flags of the different tribes. What is the word about the flags?
Diglo.
Diglo. There's a pasuk in Shir HaShirim, V'diglo alai ahava.
Ahava.
Hashem loves the different flags of Am Yisrael. And then he brings, that's the word V'diglo, the numerical value of which was 49. And then he brings this midrash that says, he quotes the pasuk in Bemidbar, each tribe has its flag, and then he brings a pasuk from Shir HaShirim, and he describes how the people of the other nations call Am Yisrael and say them, what are you doing? Why don't you come and join us? Shuvi Shuvi Ashulamit. They call Am Yisrael and they say, come, join us, be with us. We'll give you all kinds of leadership positions. We'll give you the positions of power and so on. And Am Yisrael says to them, can you give us the greatness that Hashem gave us in the desert? What was the greatness in the desert? That each tribe had their flag. You can't give us that kind of, in other words, the Midrash is saying that the camp of Am Yisrael in the Midbar, in the desert, is a description of beauty. That you see a nation surrounding the Mishkan, and each tribe has its flag. It means there's a nation, there's something which creates unity in the nation. We're all encamped around the Mishkan, around Hashem, but each tribe has its flag. And there's something so beautiful about that, all you nations can't give us that aspect that we find so beautiful in our nation. And even Bil'am, says the Midrash, who looked at them and wanted to curse them, couldn't curse them because Bil'am looked at the camp of Am Yisrael in the Midbar, and even Bil'am was blown away by the beauty of the camp of Am Yisrael in the Midbar, and the words that he wanted to use to curse us were just forgotten, and he blessed Am Yisrael. So you see that the Midrash is taking the flags of the tribes and saying that the flags of the different tribes is a positive aspect of a nation that has diversity, that has different tribes in it, and yet it has something in the center of it that brings us all together, and it ties back to this Yerushalmi about the Torah being given with the number of Vidiglo, that there are 49 different aspects to each part, each halacha, each mitzvah in the Torah, so that each one of us can find himself. You can find yourself in Beit Shammai or in Beit Hillel. You can find yourself in Rabbi Meir or in Rabbi Yehuda. You can find yourself in Chassidut, or you can find yourself in being Litvak. All the different kinds of groups that you have within Am Yisrael, and that's a positive aspect that connects through the flags to the tribes. So I'm thinking that these sources are giving support to this idea that I was thinking, that the reason why we have tribes is that because we dafka need to have tribes to express and give space for diversity within a nation. And I will get back to that in a moment, but Tova, bevakasha.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's interesting that other nations also have the tradition that they started out with 12 tribes.
Really?
And the Torah, the Ishmaelites, we have the Edom, we have other, but we also have the Greeks. The Greeks also believe that they had 12 tribes. That's the Amphictonia, that they started out with 12 tribes, which is, I think, is very interesting for us studying this.
I wonder what the number 12, what's the significance of the number 12 there? It sounds like the months of the year, but I don't know. It's interesting. Why 12?
Can divide 12.
Divisible by 1, 2, 3, and 4.
The two scientists here,
Really?
the mathematician and the physicist, are saying that scientifically it's a good number that can work with a lot of other numbers. So that's very interesting.
Mathematically. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. That
Okay.
was very interesting. I will add to that one last thing. And this is another rabbi who I happen to know, Rav Shmuel Ariel. And he says, he brings the following. Oh, there's number 4. We're not going to get to that today. Okay, we'll have something for next time. He quotes from Yechezkel, the prophet Yechezkel. These are the next to last psukim in the book of Yechezkel. This is the last chapter of Yechezkel. And after, you see, these are psukim Lamed Aleph, Lamed Bet, Lamed Gimel, Lamed Dalet. And then the last pasuk is Lamed Hey. But these 4 psukim describe Jerusalem in the future, in Messianic times, where there are 12 gates to the city. You see, each pasuk mentions 3 tribes. Pasuk Lamed Aleph mentions the tribes of Reuven, Yehuda, and Levi. Pasuk Lamed Bet mentions the tribes of Yosef, Binyamin, and Dan. Lamed Gimel describes the tribes of Shimon, Issachar, and Zvulun. Lamed Dalet describes the tribes of Gad, Asher, and Naphtali. So there are 12 tribes of Israel here. And the description in the psukim, I have here the psukim in English. Tanakh just happens to be open here on the table at chapter 48 of Yechezkel, which is an absolute proof of divine providence, or that I opened it before.
Exactly.
Joyce? So I have here the psukim in English.
Avir la'aniach.
They say the following, and the gates of the city shall be after the names of the tribes of Israel. 3 gates northward, Reuven, Yehuda, and Levi. And at the east side there is a measure of such and such distance, and 3 great gates, one for Yosef, one for Binyamin, one of Dan. On the south side, the same measure, 3 gates of Shimon, Yisachar, and Zvulun. At the west side, the same measure, 3 gates, one of Gad, one of Asher, and one of Naphtali. So Jerusalem, in this messianic description, has 12 gates, and each tribe has a gate. And if you think of the symbolic significance of this, there is something in the center of Am Yisrael that holds us together, that is expressed in Jerusalem, in the Mikdash, in different aspects of what Jerusalem symbolizes. And there is a gate for each tribe. There's a way, there's an opening for each different aspect of diversity in Am Yisrael to connect to that thing which holds us together, but each one has his own way of his own opening of how to connect to that. I think that's pretty powerful.
Okay.
And Michael, it's not about rabbis, it's about all the 12 tribes of Israel. So thank you for getting me to look for those sources.
Okay.
I'll hint to one more for next time. We'll leave it for next time, but I'll hint to it. There is a halacha that if you see a crowd of Israelites, meaning of Jews, there's a special blessing that you make. In Hebrew, it's called Baruch Chacham Razim. Raz is secret. Sod, yes. And you make a special blessing. Blessed is he who discerns the secrets. What is the secret about seeing a large group of people from Am Yisrael? I will dare say that it means that each person is different. Not only that, every Jew has, make your choice, 2 opinions, 4 opinions, but Hashem knows all these intricate secrets of the differences of opinions within Am Yisrael, and you make a blessing over it. We'll get into that the next time we meet. Bezrat Hashem. If anyone wants to make any further comments, please do. There's still a few minutes if you'd like to do that.
Okay.
I think it's also important to take what you said and understand that having all of these different opinions that are all valid should teach us to be more accepting of people that disagree with us. That it's not always just about you and what you think.
I would even make another suggestion, given this description at the end of Yechezkel about the different gates for the different tribes. I would make another suggestion and say that sometimes people want to insist, my gate is the right gate. And sometimes what you're doing by that is you're blocking someone else's ability to connect to what's supposed to bring us to get together. We're not supposed to be identical. We're supposed to have a common denominator, and that's expressed in Yerushalayim. But if you don't enable other people to connect to Yerushalayim because they don't connect to Yerushalayim the same way that I do, so you're not helping them connect. Come with me through my gate, because that gate is not right for them, and you're blocking them from being able to connect to Yerushalayim in their own gate. So if you don't respect their gate, you're not helping Am Yisrael, you're getting in the way of Am Yisrael.
But where is in the Torah is that real encouragement for considering the diversity?
In the 5 books of Moses? I'm asking because we brought examples.
Yeah.
Like I think the idea of tribes in Sefer Bereshit is one place where you see it. That the formation of the nation is through a certain 3 generations of fathers and mothers, but then it becomes a separation of a diversification by tribes. And I think that there's a reason for that. And that's where I find it in the Torah. Then you find it in Yechezkel, in this nice expression that Rav Shmuel Ariel exposed to us. But I think it's there in the Torah as well. But yes, maybe it might be true. It's an interesting question, Ilana, that it might be true that the Torah, like, look how I started off. In the beginning, this is the fifth time we're discussing this topic. The first two I dedicated to discussing that we do need a joint framework, and we can't have endless diversity because we're just gonna fall apart at the seams. We're not gonna have anything that holds us together. And maybe the Torah is doing the opposite. You know, if I only discuss diversity, we're going to have a nation falling apart. It's not going to be a nation. We need to form and mold the nation. Maybe there is such an aspect in, and I'm sure that there are different times in our history. There are times when it was more important to focus on holding it together. And there are times when the togetherness is strong and we make more space for diversity.
I'm thinking, bוא נגיד, יציאת מצרים, I'm thinking at Exodus time, it did, in fact, all the Jews in depart together. We know there were other peoples who joined Bnei Israel, but did the diverse group that lived next to the Egyptians, did they all cross the sea? Did we really were we inclusive in our departure, separate from issues of the rebellion of the Jews while Moshe was up on Har Sinai and so on? I have some questions about this.
Why in the issue of diversity? Meaning, there are midrashim about the majority of Jews not leaving, but for different reasons, but not about having it, not because of lack of diversity. Meaning, once we're out of Mitzrayim, the 12 tribes are there. It's not like one tribe left and one tribe didn't.
You're right. I don't think it was like a whole tribe that didn't, but I don't know.
Some people probably stayed. They didn't want to leave.
That may be. That might be a
But-
midrash. It
But we
might be a
also have,
midrash. It might be only a midrashic idea, a gadic.
right,
It might be more factual, but in any case, it's not tribal. It's not about question of diversity or not. It's the question about faith. Did they want to
Right.
cling to the Egyptian life or to the Egyptian religion or whatever it was? Is that why they didn't leave?
Not
That's not
prepared
about
for
our
the
diversity.
lifestyle, and not prepared for the hardship.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But again, that's not about the diversity of the people.
It's not about separate tribes per se.
Right, right.
I grant you that, but I don't know. I'm struggling to find examples of where the Torah really, in a positive framework, supports the diversity.
Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. And I think I found it in the tribes,
Okay.
both in the past and in the future, in the messianic description.
I think what we're dealing with here is what I think we're learning from today's discussion is that, look, diversity is inevitable. I mean, even within an individual, you have different thoughts. So diversity is completely inevitable. How do you manage that diversity? How do you channel that in a positive way? Do you allow that to fragment and explode? Or do you allow that to bring together and to take the strengths from each of those opinions and meld them together in a common purpose?
I think you have to try to be proactive and help them be positive. Otherwise, they're just going to explode in a negative way.
Yes, that's yeah.
Actually, the president, the long-term president of Bar Ilan, Kava, I mean, he finished a while ago, gave a beautiful Torah where he said that the world consists of imitation and diversity. And, you have cells duplicating each other, and then you have mutations. And you need both to develop life.
Interesting, but I'm not I don't have the understanding of the aspects that you're mentioning.
Well, the thing is, if when a parent has children, right?
Yeah.
The parent doesn't just copy himself onto the child. Parent provides um, a set of values, a lifestyle, and the child chooses from that.
Mhm.
And sometimes the child chooses to imitate.
We've lost the others.
Eliezer? We don't hear you. Maybe his connection. Sorry, Eliezer, we've lost you.
One quick question.
Yes.
Maybe you can bring it back to us next time. When in that last section where you talk about the 12 gates for the 12 tribes, one of them is Yosef. What happened to Ephraim and Manasseh?
I'm not sure about that, but that's the because you do have Levi there, so you have to, there are 13 tribes. You have to put one in and one out. There's a game you
Well,
have
it's
to play there.
the original 12 for sure.
Yeah.
Baker's doesn't.
They got the band back together.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I'm sure commentators, they have to look it up, but they didn't have to check it out.
That just struck me.
Okay. To be continued.
Very good.